Well, hello, Create to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and today is the day of New Worlds. Yes, today we really go into fantastical realms, different planes of existence, elemental planes, planes of alignment, and so much more. And today, on this prompt, this day of alignment, we get an opportunity to uh, flip the script in your world to go to places unknown. So strap in, get ready, and let's go down the rabbit hole. All right, welcome guys from places far and wide. Today our prompt is the day of New Worlds. Now this was rephrased, given to us by our co-host here in the chat. I decided to call it the Day of New Worlds, the day when maybe the celestial alignment of planets and stars and moons. Maybe there is the thinning of the membranes between our world, the prime material plane, the planes of existence, and all of the others. Whatever the case may be, today on this day, whether it comes once a year, a particular cycle, or it's predicted every 1,000 years. Today, in your setting, we're going to talk about the Day of New Worlds. Now, one of the things about using a multiverse that sometimes we need to be careful of is that it's already difficult to explore our own realm and our own world, that once you start stacking other planes of existence, it kind of gives a way out for the players. We see this in today being Friday, of course, which used to be our future Fridays. One problem that you might come across are players who basically drop bombs and leave. So they can cause all kinds of havoc and trouble in one place, and then they just have the ability to get up and leave and go someplace else and cause all that trouble all over again. So that's one little hazard. The other hazard is dropping having the ability to drop too many storylines and hooks, and so having a session zero, of course, having a defined motivation, a defined goal for your player characters is definite. You need when you have a multiverse, or introduce a multiverse, and that's because if the players in a regular material world don't know what they're doing, adding in 1,000 other planes of existence to go to and running around aimlessly can kind of be a little bit jarring. Now, on the surface level, it may seem kind of fun. Maybe they have a starship or a spelljammer that allows them to go to different planes of existence, and then something along the way catches their eye, and then boom, they're right into the action. And so having maybe having a big bad that's traveling through different planes of existence and the players go after them, having individuals lost in this multiverse of worlds and having to get back home is another one. That's a very common trope. We've seen that in a television show. Sliders was a really fun one for its time, where every episode was about these group of characters that go through different time periods, alternate time periods of Earth, and they're all trying to get back home. So having a theme, a goal, some kind of duty or instructions or a mission to regulate them. For our co-hosts have to say that that's an interesting thing. A year does not have to be the same amount of days as our year, as well as a day not having to be set 24-hour cycle. Yep. But they could use any scale and have longer or shorter days too. For example, and to mix this up even, how you measure time might be different. I did a review of Coyote and Crow. Coyote and Crow is a um, uh, cyber mystical um, utopia punk game in which the what we know as the United States has never been colonized, and the native peoples become this like high tech cyberpunk mysticism culture, and it's called Coyote and Crow, and they maintain a base 12 system. So there's 12 hours in a day, there's 12 days in a week, it's 12 months in it. It's really weird. And then you start going like, okay, wait a minute, if it's 12 hours a day, that's 2 hours for us, but they call it an hour. And then it goes on as 12 seconds in a minute and 12 minutes. And you're like, oh, it hurts the brain. So yeah, time doesn't have to move the same either by going to different worlds. And um, we don't need to encase ourselves in Dungeons and Dragons. You can go to many different worlds, and using the thumbnail that I have up here, there's like, looks like a small child and reaching up to the cosmos and such. And I think that's kind of cool, especially when, if you go to different places, the rules can absolutely change. How time moves, gravity, air, speed, language, spatial relationships, and all that kind of stuff. And of course, manipulating the base rules of your game world. If you have magic, does magic work the same? Has magic been supplanted by technology? Is there a blending of the two? If something is affected, maybe you go to a plane of existence where it seems like there's one rule that's changed everything. A plane of existence where every thought you have in your head is broadcast to everyone all the time. A plane of existence, I ran characters through where there is absolutely zero, no light at all. It's all dark. there is no light. It's all darkness, and strange things move against your flesh and skin, and maybe people might be afraid to even take a look, stuff like that. TA says, or a world where it is continually day with twilight and blazing death sun on either side, like the eyeball worlds, but say maybe one that is slowly rotating. Oh, like uh, um, uh, going to places where it's it, like our planet Mercury. It's either facing the sun and it's blazing hot, or it's facing away from the sun and the sun sets and it's freezing cold, and there's this terminus line that everybody lives on or something like that. You can go so crazy with it, and maybe might not want to go too crazy if the players are unable to find a steady foothold in what they can and can't do and where they can and cannot go. Which is why, even though we make fun, there's a reason why in Star Wars there's mono ecology planets, the desert planet, the ocean planet, the jungle planet. There's a clear reason why science fiction does this, and the reason is because it's a very simple concept to embrace. Okay, Dagobah is a swamp like planet, enshrouded in mist and smoke and fog. Great. Okay. Now we know where our feet are at. We may not be comfortable in it, but we know no matter how far we go, it's just going to be more jungle. And as opposed to a world like Earth, in which case every time you're crossing the horizon, oh, there's a desert. Oh, there's mountains. Oh, there's tidal waves. And explaining that can be real difficult. So it's easy for us to grasp. TA goes on to say, so the death desert moves in toward you if you are on the side of the world, and the other is constantly receding away from you. That would be pretty interesting. A world where if you stand still, the environmental effects will flow past you. Hmm. I like that. I had a Fey Forest that did that, where the players were in it and the four seasons would keep cycling, but it would cycle. It basically was cycling every round. So it's like, spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, as they stood still. Yeah, of course, member of the squad says, yeah, they have that within the Ring of Fire. 77 days in a cycle, and the hours in a day aren't the same either. Yet, depending on, in within the Ring of Fire, depending on which deity sits upon the throne, the cycle, the number of hours of daylight and sunlight vary based on who's sitting on the throne, and it's not regulated by physics. It's regulated by the god that sits on that throne for that day. And there's 77 days in one cycle. It's kind of cool. With One-Eyed Heathen says, I love this show, but it starts way too late. I'll have to catch all these later when they aren't live. Yeah, it does broadcast at ungodly time. You said late. It is 6 a.m. for me. So glad to have you. I'm glad you like the show. We're having some fun here. Uh, Yeah, TA says nice. I remember some anthology books that Isaac Asimov. Oh man, missed that dude. Released a story about a world that everyone constantly had to keep marching, yeah, to avoid being scorched while moving too fast would move them into a frozen wasteland because the planet basically rotated like 300-day cycles. Yep, and they lived off of some vine that grew around the world constantly, surviving off of the growing into the wastes of the other side of the world's vines, and it was being burned off as the scorched sun moved over it too. Ooh, it's like a constant. The planet was going through a constant slash and burn, um, slash and burning, where uh, people will slash down, cut down a harvest or forest or something, and burn it, knowing that the debris, the charcoal, the carbon, and the nutrients in everything that's burned gets toiled into the soil because it makes it richer the next time. So that's kind of cool. I don't remember ever reading that story, but the idea of like moving cities or a moving caravan, people having to flee the burning sun, but not move too fast into the freezing cold of the night. That's kind of cool. Um, yeah, yeah, it is kind of. It does feel like that. Inadvertently, yeah. It says this show seems to be geared towards a European audience because we can tune in on our lunch break, and it's hella early here in the States. So, and that's why the viewership and the live streaming and stuff like that isn't as huge as it could be. And you guys know, I duck away because of my job for a couple of months. So it's like, yeah. T says, yeah, it's super early for me, 5 a.m. See, I don't understand you guys. I love it. Oh, you're that side. 3 a.m. I used 3 a.m. for you. Damn. That's, yeah. Pacific Coast. Wow. So, slow clap. Gotta give that to you. Oh, man. Oh, I should have people to shoot in where they're from. Go ahead and throw that in the chat if you can. Where are you? Where you at? Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, One Eye Heathen says, yeah, Dune was a desert planet as a way to express the themes, but very often I think sci-fi authors have single environment planets for laziness. It's true. It's true. I mean, if you establish the idea is to establish something in the minds of like the people who are embracing what you're doing, and simple touchstones is having a simple touchstone, a place where you can touch it and go, okay, I get it, and have a very easy description because maybe there's something more complex on the outside, right? I bring this up when we've talked about okay, so because we're talking about multiverses and new worlds and new planes of existence and traveling to different regions and allowing, I mean, we can do this in fantasy. There's nothing in fantasy that can stop us from having players enter into a uh, sailing craft of some kind, a ship that floats through the stars like a spelljammer, and take them to new regions. And the joy of that is exploring new places which has new rules and new concepts and new ways of interaction and such, flowing through the phlogiston of time and space to get to a new place. And maybe, just maybe, and this is just from a creative standpoint, there, One-Eyed Heathen, and I'm not arguing with you. I'm the devil's advocate in this conversation, and that is, if your characters and your interactions with people and monsters is the complex thing, then you don't want to have add additional complexity of the exploration part of it. But the opposite can be true. You can have very easy interactions with monsters. Oh, great. There's just evil monsters and they want to kill you. Great. Okay, that's simple. We get it. And then the exploration part of it is explaining what the world is. An example would be of that would be of what you're saying would be the movie Pitch Black, a early Vin Diesel movie, spacecraft going through space, gets into trouble, crash lands on a planet. They land on a planet and they're like, oh, it's like a desert wasteland with rocky outcroppings. Okay, we need to get out of here, right? Need to get back to the ship or something, call for help or whatever the case might be. And then throughout the course of the movie, it's explaining its rules and they have to decipher what the rules mean. Different sounds and lost colony and working together with each other. And so that's why it's lazy writing, because it's like, because we're into it, right? We're in that sphere, but yeah, that's it. Anyway, just going off on one side. Yeah, I'm on the East Coast. Absolutely. um, an opposite world where the humans own the cats and the cats loyally serve the humans. Yeah, I wish there was a world like that. Is it? Oh, it's been done before, but there is a role playing book I have called the UVG, the Ultraviolet Grasslands, and there's a city of cats, and everybody in the city, air quotes, has cats, but really the city's run by cats, and I'm going, isn't that how it normally is? I mean, listen, they make us feed them, they make us give them head scratchies. They get to smack our hands and attack us, and we just put up with it. It's really weird. Yeah. Moving to Missouri so I can finally start my replicator research with Ernest. Wow. Wow. Oh, no. When I either's like, yeah, take your point, RPG. I'm not trying to argue, dude. That's why we're here. We're here to argue, man. We're here to be like, DBJ, you're way off mark. Here's the reason why. That's why we're here. I that's all we're about, man. um, mm-mm-mm. TA's the scientist of the group here. Yep. Mm-mm-mm. Dropping too much knowledge there. We need a science channel just for Mr. Anderson. Heathen says, "Oh, I've heard of the Ultraviolet Grasslands. I want to play it because I love that weird genre, like heavy metal and Dying Earth." Yep, that's exactly right. Numenera. Yep, is a fun RPG in that same vein. Exactly. Very very caravan, Oregon Trail, moving across the wastelands and things like that. It's very much like that. And in this day of new worlds, using a more of a rap terminology, flipping the script, it's an easy way for us to say, you know what, we've been playing in I don't know, traveling through wilderness. There's trees and trade routes, and you're like, man, I really want to change this up, and I want my players to engage in something new, and going to different worlds is an easy way for us to go from extremes without having to explain why there's a desert next to my mountains, next to my swamp. Um, for some players, it can kind of break the immersion if they go, well, there's no geological reason why there'd be a desert next to a mountain next to a swamp, right? Not that you need to explain the geology of your world, but that can be a thing. And being able to travel to new worlds allows you to break rules that don't normally exist. For example, having the classic galleons and boats of the early uh, the early days of sailing the oceans and having them float through space. It's like, well, how can we breathe in space? You don't. It just don't worry about it. It's a gimme. You're just on a ship, sailing ship, going through three-dimensional space, flying to other planes of existence or something. Um, that's all. And it's very much a dead man's talking about Stargate. And to limit the possibilities, and we see this so often in creative writing. Star Wars does this to a T. Star Trek does this a lot as well. When you give players the ability to travel wherever they want, whenever they want, and get there in speeds that move at the speed of plot, how do you stop them from dropping nukes and leaving and going like, well, we're just going to nuke it from orbit and leave your worlds? How do you stop them from going through a Stargate when there's a Stargate everywhere? Well, and we've talked about this before many years ago on Future Friday. And the thing is that foreshadow limitations of all types. You guys been here before. You know I like my TER. Although there's an SE added to it. So anytime you add in some terse limitations, you can limit anything, make it narrative, and your players aren't shouldn't balk too much, especially if you foreshadow it. So terse basically stands for time, energy, resources, um, social constructs, and economy. So, time, maybe to travel from one place to another, is based on celestial events. Hey, if you go to another world, you have to wait for the stars and planets to align again. And maybe that alignment is every 3 days, every 4 years. It could be random, but the randomization of it is out of the control of the players. Oh, you can go to this other world. You can be there for 2 hours, but if you stay there, the next cycle will be 5 years, something like that. Or they get dropped off and or pass through a stargate of sorts, and the time mechanism, even though it took them an instant to go one direction, it may take them years to come back the other direction. Energy is another one. And energy can be nuclear energy, magical energy, psychic energy. It could be some. How many times has a ship need to refuel with dilithium crystals and they're stuck? How many times has uh, we've actually seen this inserted into Star Wars, although it wasn't there originally, where um, what's the Star Wars fuel? Oh, it was brought up in the movie, the Solo movie. Anyway, um, so energy has a lot to do with it. Also, it may take a lot of energy to set something up. Maybe are players are designated to take a Stargate physically from one place to another, traveling many miles on camelback and elephant back to travel to a place to set up a Stargate, only to be able to walk back instantly, right? Like you can't teleport anywhere instantly. You have to put a doorway on one place, open up a doorway someplace else, and then you're able to go back and forth. In Dungeons and Dragons, we've got teleport circles, and teleport circles are cool, except you need an endpoint, and so that energy to get from one place to another has to be set up first before the energy becomes easy. Resources are another one. Resources could be people. I was going to say money, but that's actually the economic part of it. But resources could be needing to mine, drain, energize, things like that. Social costs are doing a thing might make you hated or well loved or responsible in your community or looked at as a demon or exiled or something. Hey, sure, you can step through a Stargate, but no one's going to want you to come back. Um, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, economics. It costs a lot of money. You, it's it, today we have space programs, but they do cost in the hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. And at a certain point, it traveling may not be viable simply because it costs too much. The economic costs on the rest of society might be too high. Maybe opening a Stargate to get from A to B is easy, but to implement the darn thing, like in the movie Contact, it was a multi-billion-dollar thing to make an orb that can contact an alien species, and the world was into it until it failed, and then everyone's like, "We spent too much money on this. Let's shut it off." And players might be on one side or the other, or have to sneak in to turn the thing on to get to the other side, and I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I have to get back into what our co-hosts have to say here. Um, Paperclip theory. Yeah, paperclip theory. I have that in my sci-fi setting. There was a Hulu series where a parody version of a monolithic god was going to destroy Earth and have an entire planet that was a restaurant that was just a giant lazy Susan. That's crazy. I love that. I'm intrigued by the idea of random movement of stars in a planet sky. How would that even happen? Unless it's a civilization that's moving stars or something. Hmm. In the Star Rigger, the gates on the worlds were not easily mapped out, so many portals were called potluck portals because no one going through it had ever returned. Yep, yep. Potluck. Who knows what's going to happen to you or where you're going to go? Yeah, they might have rumors of what happened to them, but a person returning was not able to give solid info to authorities. Thus, it never reached mapping levels. Thus, the general public of the worlds around it just had no idea where the portal went, if it went anywhere. And that's another thing too. If is this? I mean, there's a whole mission profile attached to this. Are the players the first ones to go to this other world? If they're not, who went first and who established how was a connection made on the other side? Is it just an unmapped world, or did the first few people or first trips establish a behavior that no longer matters or is in opposition to what is today? Maybe to go to a new world, it was like a military invasion or a religious pilgrimage or something of that nature, or resource extraction. Now the players go and then they are saddled with the end result of the people that went before them. And of course, we love to have places where people went and they were murder killed, but why? Is it because they didn't learn the rules, or is there something truly horrific on the other end that loves the taste of human flesh or something? I don't know. TA says, I had a world in my game based on the Star Rigger that basically looked like those magic rock gardens. Okay, with growing rock cultures that constantly fluoresced. Oh, you mean, do you mean like the little domes? I gotta get an image of that. Hmm. Ooh. Okay, sorry, trying to go through what you guys have to say. Still stay on point. Dead Man brings up Star Wars fuel was Ridonium. Is that it? Ridonium? Ridonium? I couldn't remember the name of the fuel, and it's only because it was not added later on. It's probably in the books, the legacy books, but I didn't remember it till the Solo movie. But yes, fuel for space travel. I mean, for space travel, and we can use this in fantasy and other science fiction. Something else used very often in, well, Star Trek is always out of fuel, but there's also celestial. You could have extra planar events and celestial events that prevent someone going directly from one place to another. An example would be the outer planes of Dungeons and Dragons. You can't go to the ninth plane of hell directly. You have to go through the astral plane, go to the first plane of hell, and figure out how to get your way down. Same thing with going to the upper planes. You can't go to the seven heavens and get to the seventh level of heaven up the mountainside. You have to start at the first base level and work your way up. So you have limitations on travel, um, star systems, and worlds that are behind worlds and within worlds. You also have um, um, time dilation of sorts. Dilation is difficult to do in role playing games and in books, novels, because every time a person leaves, time changes in their past. But what I mean by time dilation is that the amount of time it takes to get from one place to another, despite what would seemingly be an instant portal to get there, may take so much time. You step through the portal, but it's taking you 1,000 years before you actually exit the other side of the portal. Might also be a strangeness or aging yourself or something like that. As well as Star Wars, we have hyperspace, and how often in the Millennium Falcon has it broke down, right? And it breaks down in the most inconvenient locations at end times, and to engage in a bit of a more dramatic challenge kind of thing. So whatever ability or vehicle or whatever the players have to go to new worlds, if it's constantly breaking down, needs repairs, needs to be energized, calibration and navigation is another thing. So there are limitations. There are easy ways to add limitations as long as they're foreshadowed, and then players can go, okay, well, we fixed the nav. We have a, I don't know, a crystal ball that helps us navigate through um, the planar worlds, but it takes a lot of energy and we need to take some fuel with us. So we need to go get that fuel, but it's held by some BBEG, that kind of thing. Mm-mm-mm. See, see the books. Okay. Yeah. Heathen says, now that would be interesting. Coming upon a dead world. That could be a story in itself. Lovecraft liked depicting dead worlds, and I've always found that interesting. Well, like why? Why would the world be dead in the first place, right? TA's talking about the, I'm trying to go back. Here we go. Later in the book, you see portals. Later in the book, you see that even portals that the world was destroyed, a strip of skyway ran through space until it reached the next portal. So you definitely have to have a space-worthy vehicle to be sure you are safe in such situations. That and the Skyway itself was built for a culmination of races that spread across the universe came together to figure out a solution to the death of the universe. Yeah, the heat death. There could be some kind of a extra planar situation that's maybe spreading, or whatever calculations or magic or exploration or something could have caused the death of a world, or maybe the world itself is just entropic, necrotic, anything that settles there that that rests for any period of time might die. That's an idea as well. Oh wow. One of the worlds in that trilogy had a submerged section of the Skyway, and they used aquatic leviathans to navigate from one dry area to another, which really which really to get a sense of the Leviathan size, the the truck the main character has is like a football field long, runs off of twin nuclear fusion reactors, and the Leviathan was able to house it inside. That's awesome. I love stuff like that. In a book in the Hyperion series by Dan Simmons. Uh, Very award winning. I think it's from the 90s. But anyway, in that series, they had their portals were called Farcasters, and they had a river. They had an infinite river that went to multiple worlds, and they had a Stargate, a Farcaster that so you could take a sailing craft or a yacht and flow through the river, and the river would go to different worlds. But at a certain point, the river would come back to that world. So it was a closed loop, but it was an infinite river, and very kind of cool because I think there were some images on the cover of the book where you had people sitting on a beach and they could look through the portal to see these other worlds in different times and spaces, but the river itself just kept going on and on and on. And you could have a day of new worlds where maybe there is a river that opens up with these portals at one end and the other, and then people from different worlds can travel through, or they take on passengers like the player characters. Kind of cool. uh OEH says, I once conceived of a species that lived on a gas giant who created cities that floated upon the clouds. Ah, chandelier cities. Yeah. There were many different consistencies of gas and liquids near the core. And chandelier cities, aerostats are a really cool idea. I love it. Plane, like going to the plane of air in Dungeons and Dragons, where uh, I once described a section of it where it was just constantly falling and there was no bottom. And the player characters had to like skydive and stuff like that. It was kind of cool. And then they visited a city that was falling the same way, and they had to like try to hold on to doors and things like that. It was kind of weird, but yeah, a chunk of the material plane was falling in the plane of air. Uh, mm, mm, mm. You could have some liquid floating in pockets of other liquids. Cool. Have you ever explored the Wikipedia page on interstellar travel? You guys know I can go down these rabbit holes. You already know that. Mm-mm-mm. And do. Um, to give you guys an idea, uh, mm, oh no, no, you can't do that. uh, he either says, I'm a jerk. I like the idea of portals in otherwise fatal places, like off a cliff in a giant whirlpool, etc. I've done something like that. Like maybe the portals were created by an ancient civilization, and then the locations that they were made, events change around them. So the portals don't move, but events around it move. So a portal in a pretty normal place might be in the heart of, I don't know, there might be lava floating around it, like you say, on the edge of a cliff. It could be, I once had a portal that was in the air because the land around it had eroded, and people had then constructed a tower to try to get back up to the portal that was in a geosynchronous or location. It couldn't be moved, but the land below it had sunk away and eroded away and been washed away and such. And then people had come back to it, found it, and were like trying to reach it, and they were constructing this tower to get to it. And there were other factions that were like, you shouldn't touch it because it's pretty dangerous and stuff like that. TA says something could be a new world through that portal that is in a less dark matter section of the universe, and as a result of the dark matter causing a sort of Newtonian fluid effect, the faster you go, this new world has faster than light travel because the lower dark matter concentration allows moving faster without hindering you as you approach speed. And again, the changing of the rules, right? It's it's manipulating, it's us being able to manipulate the rules by using that to give to the players to let them know things don't work the way you think they do in this other place. Yeah, when I hear this, oh wow, Tower of Babel space elevator to a portal, I can see where there'd be lots of conflict. I'm a huge proponent of this channel and myself. I'm a proponent of conflict, right? Drama, not really answers to things. I love the exploration of trying to find the answer to the thing that you're trying to find the answer to. So, for example, my go-to is the conflict between magic and technology. And some people will argue, well, firearms would never exist in a magical realm, or vice versa. And my point is, it doesn't matter. The conflict of having the two exist at the same time is the story. It's not whether one would defeat the other. It's yeah. It's it. The thing is that we love to, from the outside. We're far too brilliant for our own good. So sometimes we look on the outside and go, "Well, if we had magic, we would never engage in technology." And the thing is, there's an argument to be made for either side and both at the same time. Um, is magic If magic isn't available to the general public, people will default to technology. If you've got people who are skilled and taught to throw fireballs, and there's a huge population that can't, they're going to try to make fireballs back at the other people shooting at them in a different way. Also, if one subsides the other, there are people who will live and die during a period of time, especially like in our own world. There are people who thought that the automobile would never be a thing, and they live and died by riding horses, and this newfangled thing of horseless carriages will never take off the ground. And they grew up, lived, and died in a whole space of time where that never happened. Didn't mean it didn't exist later on. Same thing with firearms. Some people were like, "Oh, using chemicals to make explosive. Those are just firecrackers. That's just for entertainment. That'll never be in war. And there are people who um, lived and died through a period of time where they believed that and it was true for their time. And that's what role playing games are. It's living through a period of time. So um, now, what happens after that? Sure. Did one side win? Maybe, but you would never know if you lived through it. Yeah. Drew says drama is also my jam, at least in the fiction. At the table, I prefer not to have drama. Well, we like to have drama with characters, not with players. Tia says, yeah, like I said, the magic of the realm is not as strong that way as some blight they call technology has infected the realm. Yep, yep. And we all know there's an exception to every rule. There's always an exception to every rule. So there's no way for someone to go, oh, because there's magic, there will never be technology. That's a little bit. It, it in our own world today, we have technology, and there are millions upon millions of people who embrace, use, and feel that they are benefited from magic today, right now. And you could easily claim, well, there is no magic in the world, and I would challenge you to say, yes, in your point of view, but there are other people who absolutely believe in magic and use it every day. So, yep. Now, in our role playing games, it's a lot more in your face. Same thing about like if there's gods and everybody would worship gods, and I'm like, no, they wouldn't. You know how many people would give their middle fingers up to the F you deities, pantheon, right? There's a lot of that. They don't have to just because gods exist. There's always an exception. I love exceptions. Deadman says, like the hub realm in the expanse, go faster than 2,000 meters per second, and it would stop your ship instantly. there's a pretty funny there's a pretty funny if not horrible scene where um a slingshotter uh is attempting to go through the hub realm and slams into the speed within the hub realm. That's pretty funny. It's gotta admit it's pretty funny. It's a shame too because that slingshotter was kind of cool. That dude was pretty cool. And I like the idea of like they're like the skateboarders of the solar system in the expanse. Individuals who have these tiny spaceships that are stripped down to nothing to go designed to go as fast as they can using gravity assist and maneuvering in ways where gravity assist is kind of like their own propulsion. And yeah, pretty funny in image. uh One Eyed says, hey, what about a world where everyone has a level of magic, but some do not, and they are essentially disabled? I wonder what sort of aids they would have to operate in that society. Um, I also bring up the fact that air quotes magic is usually only accessible to people who study it or are born with it, which means you already have a classism. And how easy would it be to murder kill people before they go to college to learn magic, right? Like, if you want to defeat wizards, you poison their food. You burn their crops. You bribe and kidnap and seduce and carouse, and you do that to all their underlings. That's what you do. You get someone can throw a fireball, you hit him in the back of the head, right? You throw a fireball, you don't set up an army to be blasted. You sit back, wait up in the cut, and you poison their food. You piss in their water. That's what you do. Oh yeah, yeah. Drama has to be fun and exciting, or it becomes taxing and draining. Like when it's boring and irritating. And thanks for already adding that in there, Ta. But Mr. Anderson is absolutely correct because, and that's where you have to read the room. Sometimes, as a person who is an advocate for the role playing, the doing things in voice and the body motions and all that kind of stuff, being a drama queen is, it can be a little irritating at the table when everyone's just like rolling their eyes, like, God, can we just move past this scene? You know, so it's always a give and take of our games and such because it is a game. And, you know, if you're going to bother making a character sheet and getting into it, you kind of want to roll the dice, right? Um, The Shy Squad said Andrew Wood had an interesting idea about the firearms versus magic thing. He said the existence of magic would slow technological development so much that you'd have a primitive world like in Conan. That is a possibility that would be a thing, right? If you could beseech the gods, or you have oracles or diviners or druids or elementalists that can protect you from the harsh, uh, purify dank water and protect you from the harsh elements, would you need to develop technology? Not necessarily. But if you have a classism, technology could exist. If you have people who are like, well, you can only benefit from this if you are part of us, and someone wants to be a rebel and go against the group, when they get kicked out the group, they no longer are benefiting from the magic. So it depends on how prevalent magic is, I feel. Because if you keep it away from someone, those people are going to solve their problems other ways, and technology is one way of doing that. Or making deals with other magical entities or something, right? There, um, if you keep people out of college, the uneducated are going to come develop a thing on their own. Uh, that's just a truism, and that's where you have tension. Because if you without friction, then there really is no story, right? Like Mary says, I think it's simpler than that with magic versus firearms. Glass versus porcelain for cups and plates. Both were used for centuries in different parts of the world. Is one superior to the other? Maybe. Right. And it's also access. Some places may have access to, like you say, porcelain, glass, clay. Um, some people had access to different materials where they lived. If you're a glass blowing society, you can develop that, and it's closer to you. We as a society are a uh, oil based society for energy. Does it mean we can't get energy from solar, geothermal, nuclear? Um, the motion tides of the motion in the ocean, river tides, that those are accessible too, right? Electrical and all that kind of stuff. Human powered, we have the ability to human powered. Do we use it? No. But could one defeat the other when we start running out of oil? Yes. Yeah, but Mike Maron goes on to say, but cultural inertia and local materials set the rules of that bit of the world for ages, far more than the science of which is superior. Exactly. We know that there are, um, that works for technology too. Sometimes it doesn't matter whether one technology is superior. It only matters, it's the cost of the thing: time, energy, resources, social inertia, economics. It's these things, like what's the cost of the thing to use the thing. If it takes 5 years to learn magic and 3 months to learn technology, one is essentially better than the other. It's the argument of which spell is better: teaching 50 people magic missile or teaching one person fireball. And it's probably 50 people using magic missile, right? Because it's just, it might be an easier thing to do. So yeah. Yeah, in our world, we were calling technology what is essentially magic. Yep. Uh, um, Asimov's law of magic. Oh shoot, I'm forgetting it right now. Um, yeah, Thomas Anderson says, like LEDs that are basically specialized crystals that hitting them with lightning causes them to emit specialized single frequency light. Yep, yep. The Klingons killed their gods. I think that's badass. All right, heathen. I like that too. I never heard that from them, but yeah. Mike Mayer says, metaphysically, literally, spiritually, or socially? That sounds like a line from Coast Costa. Oh man, but yeah. Yeah, how did they destroy them? Uh-oh, Drew's on the side of the Klingons. Yeah. Our deities are just powerful entities who harass people. Hey, listen, the Greeks and Romans thought that too, and they created them, right? It's the idea, like, and it's also the idea of, do we have our own fate and all that kind of stuff, and going to the ability to go to different realms, taking this back to what we're talking about, to go to different worlds, the ability to do that could exacerbate the limitations that people have of the world they're in, and then express the freedoms that they have by leaving the world they're in. The gods could say, listen, you're not allowed to leave. And the PCs are like, wait a minute, but we can get in a ship or walk through that portal and not be under your control. We're leaving. We're getting out of here. Yep. It would be interesting to have a world where magic would be treated like technology, where new magic could be invented, maybe copywritten and sold to companies and individuals. That's when you have magic that becomes like a natural resource. Being able to harness it and collect it and save it and warehouse it and use it to tap into the ley lines to light houses and stuff. And eventually, technically, it would tapping into the magic like technology would just be technology, right? It's just instead of using what we call electricity or nuclear power or kinetic or potential energy and all that. It's just magic, Fae, the weave, ley lines, whatever. But it's still the same thing. Even if it has different rules, if those rules are predictable, it would still be the same thing. That's how Eberron operates, the setting of Eberron, where you have like um, industrial magic. So um, people use gargoyles to deliver messages across, floating cities and to deliver messages that can't be read except through like a magical invisible ink or something, and you must speak a command word to let the words be said. And it's just a common thing. It's just like whatever, okay. Low level magic as technology, absolutely. But John Wick made an interesting argument on Facebook and on his channel that all magic is divine in nature, that arcane magic is an invention of fantasy. Yeah, you could make that argument, but I mean that's assuming that the world that he that's assuming does he is the argument through literature? Is the argument through like Dungeons and Dragons, like the magic comes from divine worlds or something? Yeah, you could make that argument, but you'll lose. I think he's brilliant, but I think he's wrong, because if you change the base underlying mechanism of the argument, then the argument disappears, right? Uh, yeah. uh, when I hear this says, to me, too much political intrigue in a TTRPG is boring. I think my favorite aspect of gaming is exploring the game universe and interacting with it to tell a story. And too much, yeah, too much of anything can be a little bit wild, right? Eating your fruits and vegetables is cool. Eating carrots for 5 days straight for breakfast, lunch, and dinner is horrible, right? So too much of anything is always a problem. We tend to lose that idea when it comes to like politics and the things we get mad about on the internet and all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, you a little bit too much of that stuff, and whatever it is, you need to calm down. So everyone becomes a godlike entity. Ugh. Mm-mm-mm-mm. So everyone becomes a god-like entity, and what determines if they are a god or demon is if they have let go of the past and learn from it, or get bogged down and can't let the past go. The former would work towards even every upward and forward solutions, while the latter sticks with harassing and meddling in the affairs of the living. You're bringing up like ascending, moving past the past and into the future. Although learning from the past is how we move into the future, not knowing that we make mistakes, and learning from those mistakes is a big deal too. When I hear this, I love the idea of trading tech items for magic items and vice versa. What happens to a society that uses magic but no tech, that gets introduced to tech and vice versa? Um, you could have issues. I mean, remember, literally, this is a brand new thing, um, because we used to. Let's see if cover of what is it? Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. And on the cover of it, let's see if we get an image of this, and I throw this up here, because I did a review of this. Oops. I got a ton of things sitting back here. Let's see if we could show this. Get it. Amazon, Goodman Games. Share this instead. So on the cover of this, let's see if we can get this even bigger. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully you can see this. Nope, you can't see it. There we go. All right. So, Dungeons and Dragons, Expedition to Barrier Peaks, right? Visual Adventures Reincarnated. This is from Goodman Games. This is the original art right here. And if you take a real good look at this image, you got a warrior, a fighter over here. And if you take a look at the top, oops, this looks like a space helmet on some kind of D&D character. This also looks like maybe another individual with what is that? Is that a laser pistol firing it through a creature on the cover of a D&D module with the original art? There's Earl Otis. Earl Otis, right down there in the bottom left. Yeah, technology has always in been mixed in fantasy. It was like one and the same, and it wasn't until recently. And when I say recently, 50 years, that we started separating the two into categories. But yeah, we've always been doing this kind of stuff. But if I can show you guys certain things, let's see. We've got here different ideas of multiverses and images thereof of multiverses and what does a multiverse look like, and trying to establish a visual representation of a multiverse is kind of difficult, um, but it is a thing, and expressing that to player characters, because some feel that we would really not want to go into multiverse because we wouldn't be able to conceive of it and we would be driven insane. But there is a possibility of that. In Dungeons and Dragons, of course, we have Planescape. The Planescape campaign setting is still available. You can actually get it on DriveThru RPG. If I'm not mistaken, they're scanned sheets, so the quality is questionable, but all the information is still available. So I think I have 3 Planescape books, and some of the brilliance of the Planescape books themselves. This person has a bunch of them listed together here. Some of the brilliance of the Planescape books is that they are opinionated books, as Sly Flourish would say. The books are written from the point of view of various individuals being questioned, so they have an opinion about how the world works, and that's always cool because opinions give to us a reason to, like, why do people love, hate, fear, question, admire certain things about a place. And it's also because it's opinionated, you can also have a unreliable narrator. So that's a thing. Moving on ahead, we have different images. This is going into closer to later age Dungeons and Dragons, about how the planes are set up. What do they look like? Are they, let's see, Archives of Lysturian? Are they set up like an ethereal plane in the middle and a prime material plane at the top? Are they set up? Let's see if you guys can see this one. It's a little hard to see this one. Let's see if I get a larger image here. Very, very difficult to get this one. But anyway, we have here in the middle, we have the material plane, and to either side we got shadow and the Feywild. We have the border ethereal plane around that, and then as the circle goes around, starting at 12 o'clock, we've got the positive plane down below at 6 o'clock. We have the negative plane, And then as you start going around the circle, it's like air, lightning, smoke, radiance, fire, ash, magma, minerals, uh, earth, dust, ooze, salt, water, steam, ice, and vacuum, and back to air and such. And then on the outside of that, you have the astral plane, and on the outside of that, you have the other planes of existence. Um, Pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool to look at it that way. Um, Here are other. We're kind of going backwards in time here, but these are other visual representations of the planes. The Great Wheel is one in which let's see if I can find one that's really good. This old man, it's difficult to find. But anyway, the Great Wheel describes the is a is an expansion of the 9 points of the alignment wheel. Let's see if I can find another one here. Uh, and the original Great Wheel was like this, where concordant opposition was neutral in the middle, and then you went around the circle, which was actually the 9 point alignment system, and then each of these they were given a name, and this was in the appendix of the Dungeon Master's Guide, I believe. I don't think it was the Player's Handbook. Was it deities and demigods? Maybe that was it. So Elysium was like lawful good, and Hades was chaotic evil, or was no, the abyss was chaotic evil. Seven heavens was lawful good, and then Nirvana was neutral good. Nine hells lawful evil, so on and so forth. And then there were ones in between the different alignments. So between neutral good and lawful good, you had Arcadia, et cetera, et cetera, happy hunting grounds, and blah blah blah. And then they even those became renamed when it went into Planescape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Cosmologies. Kind of love the cosmologies. It kind of gives a map of what the world would be like, and that kind of thing. Sorry, guys. It's hard to do that and to get into what you guys are talking about. Oh shit. I think a book about a school for gods where the youngsters learn how to create and run worlds and societies would be fun vehicle for satire. That is really cool. That's like a modern gods kind of thing. Yeah, that'd be kind of awesome. Yeah. Dead Man says in Arcanum of Steam Worlds and Magic Obscura, if you had a high magic affinity, tech would fail in your hands. And if you had a high tech affinity, magic would fail around you. That's a really cool idea, and really, I mean, you could easily make that a mechanical feature in it, just about any role playing game. But I like that. I love that a lot. So basic prop. So processors or the basic transistor gate is a gate to controlled by that demon. That'd be kind of cool. Computer programs summoning demons and stuff. I like that. I like that a lot. One eyed heathen says, "I love trading ideas, but I really need to head to bed. I'll switch to my phone and listen as I get in a few. I think you need sleep is important, so I'm glad you could be here. A magic internet where you have people you speak to while they sleep, and they use dreamscaping to deliver it to another sleeper that speaks your words to someone on the other end, like telephony. That's awesome. Sleep telephony. You get a lot done. Although you might not want to have certain things in your brain while you're sleeping, but okay. Yeah, to get to the virtual video and audio direct, you have to become one of the sleepers. Ooh. Oh man, nothing like the shits from constant carrot eating. Yeah. Yeah. I'm losing weight myself. I'm doing my own keto, and yeah, the shits is a thing. Yeah, Drew says no. The argument is about yes. The talking about John Wick. Yeah, it says no. The argument is about reality, and I also disagree with him since it feels like to have everything divine requires to define it that way. Yeah, exactly. Um, but I think by definition in role playing games, there's been a separation between divinity and reality. Um, and also, we as human beings like to feel that our own destiny is in our own hands and not not completely controlled by an outside force, even though all of our personalities are essentially being controlled by our interactions with the world, even if they're counter to what the world wants us to do. It's we are programming our own selves by our own interactions with the things we interact with, and then deciding whether it is something that is a positive or negative to our experiences. And then we just have billions and billions of these experiences stacked on top of each other. And then we kind of sometimes we'll go through our Rolodex of experiences and change our mind about a thing. So in a weird way, we're programming ourselves, I guess. We could have a story where the main characters find out all these goofy ass worlds are actually school projects. Like that the dominant species of each world aren't even recognized as real people, just practice people to be flushed down a cosmic toilet when the science fair is over. That is a cool idea to get people to save. I mean, why if you found out you were in a petri dish or a hamster in a cage, wouldn't you want to get out? Yeah, yeah. That's a great idea. I love it. Drew says, I can conceive of a multiverse. I just don't like it because I find it unscientific. No, there's far more science than you think that are embracing the idea of multiverses. But like Isaac Arthur mentions, a different multiverse could literally be a universe where one electron is out of sync with an electron in this universe, right? So infinite realities doesn't necessarily mean it's different actors playing different roles. It might mean that literally atoms are spinning differently in one place than another, or if you counted every physical object in both worlds, one is missing one's physical object and the other one isn't, and the individuals in one world may never even see that thing missing, like us being able to see an electron spinning in a different direction. So yeah. Yeah, a planet made out of opinions inside a virtual world. Ow. I don't know. Within the Ring of Fire, it's kind of like that. Yeah, there's always an imagination. Yeah, the idea of a multiverse is essentially a religion. Daniel Kirchner, Shice Squad drummer. Hell's yeah. Yeah. Which in many ways, if we found a portal, so let's end it with this thought, with this thought experiment. So, if there is a world and a different universe, and everyone could visit a universe, and there is a universe that is exceptional for you, that in the infinite expanse, there's a universe that is special for you. You become the god of that universe. Would we, as a population, completely disperse with all of us living in that universe, or would we want to live in universes that we aren't the apex? I wonder if you had that choice, would people stay there? I like that. I like that a lot. There are only there are only 10 types of people, because that's how you would say it, right? There are only 10 types of people: those who understand binary and those who don't. Yeah, that joke. Yeah. As a joke in my sci-fi world, there are the Aji. They are um, awakened artificial general intelligences, AGIs, or the Aji, and they always take on the name and surname of on off, any combination of on off and on, in groups of three. So you might have a name like off on, and their last name might be on off on, and or their first name might be on off, and their last name might be off on off, or something like that. So it's like on and off. It's just it's a big joke. Uh, yeah. It's only a fig Newton of your imagination. We're gonna have to take it out on that one. Of your imagination onion, which I love. Guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. We still have 2 more weeks of this. And by the way, if you have a great idea for a prompt or an idea or something, please throw it anywhere in which you could put it in, whether it's in the chat, whether it is somewhere, it doesn't matter where it is. But I would prefer in the comment section, but you don't need to. You can do it right where you're at. 1 word, 2 words at the most, something that sparks the imagination. Guys, have a great weekend. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for giving me this mind fuel. Guys, have a great one. I will see thee later. Have a great one. Oh, any outgoing happy end of another arbitrary fraction of eternity, y'all. I love it. Peace and prosperity.